Story 1. Party at the Abandoned House. On the outskirts of a small town, hidden among tall trees and dense vegetation, there was an abandoned house that carried dark stories and forgotten secrets. The locals avoided the house, and neighborhood children told scary stories about unexplained events and ghostly apparitions. This was the Holloway Mansion, a place that, despite its architectural beauty, exuded an air of desolation and mystery. It was an autumn afternoon when a group of teenagers decided it would be fun to challenge the local legends and throw a party at the Holloway Mansion. The group consisted of 5 inseparable friends: Luke, Anna, Peter, Claire, and Ralph. They were in their final year of high school and wanted an adventure to mark the end of their school years. "Let's do something epic before we go our separate ways for college," suggested Luke, the natural leader of the group. "A party at the Holloway Mansion would be perfect. Who's with me?" The others hesitated for a moment. The excitement of the idea soon overcame the fear. "Let's do it," claimed Anna, always the bravest of the group. Peter, the most skeptical, raised an eyebrow. "You know they say that house is haunted, right? People have disappeared there." "Those are just stories," said Claire, trying to sound confident. "Besides, we'll be together. Nothing will happen." With the decision made, the group began planning the party. They agreed to meet on Friday night, bringing flashlights, drinks, and decorations to transform the abandoned mansion into a party venue. When the night finally arrived, the group gathered in front of the mansion. The crumbling brick walls and broken windows were a frightening sight in the moonlight. Luke was the first to push the front door, which opened with a loud creak. "Welcome to Holloway Mansion," he announced, trying to dispel the tension with a joke. Inside the house, the atmosphere was even more oppressive. Air was heavy and cold, and the sound of footsteps echoed through the empty halls. Friends began to explore the rooms, lighting their way with flashlights. "Let's set up the party in the main hall," suggested Anna, pointing to a large room with a chandelier hanging from the ceiling. "There's enough space here." They started cleaning the room, moving dusty furniture and decorating with colorful lights and balloons. Ralph turned on a small portable sound system, and music began to fill the somber silence with cheerful beats. As the party came to life, the friends laughed and danced, trying to ignore the eerie environment. However, as the night went on, strange events began to happen. Anna was the first to notice something unusual. While dancing near an old mirror in the room, she saw a shadowy figure reflected behind her. She quickly turned around, but there was no one there. "Did you guys see that?" she asked, her heart racing. "See what?" asked Luke, confused. "There was someone in the mirror. I'm sure of it." "It must have been your imagination," said Peter, trying to sound rational. "These stories are getting to our heads." Claire, who was in the kitchen looking for something to drink, heard a soft noise coming from the hallway. It sounded like a whisper, but when she approached, the sound disappeared. She returned to the room with a worried expression. "Did you hear any whispers?" she asked, trying to hide the fear in her voice. "Let's calm down," said Luke. "We're here to have fun. Nothing supernatural is going to happen." Despite the reassuring words, the feeling of unease only grew. Suddenly, the colorful lights began to flicker, and the music was interrupted by a buzzing static. "This is really strange," said Ralph, checking the sound system. "This has never happened before." Before they could investigate further, they heard a scream coming from upstairs. "What was that?" asked Anna, eyes wide with fear. "Let's check it out," said Luke, grabbing a flashlight. "Stay together." The group climbed the stairs, their footsteps making the wooden floor creak. Upstairs, they found a long hallway with several closed doors. The scream seemed to have come from one of the rooms at the end of the hallway. Luke pushed the door open, revealing a dark, dusty room. In the center of the room was a figure bent over the bed. When the flashlight illuminated the figure, they saw that it was a mannequin dressed in old clothes, but its position was eerily human. "What the hell is this?" murmured Peter, stepping back. Suddenly, the mannequin moved, rising from the bed with slow, awkward movements. The group froze in fear, unable to believe what they were seeing. Anna let out a scream and stumbled over a chair. "Let's get out of here," shouted Luke, grabbing Anna's hand and pulling her towards the door. As they ran down the hallway, they heard more whispers, now louder and clearer. "You shouldn't be here," the voices said, echoing through the walls. Descending the stairs, the group gathered in the main hall, trying to catch their breath. "Was that real? Did the mannequin really move?" asked Claire, her voice trembling. "I saw it with my own eyes," replied Ralph, still clutching the flashlight tightly. "We need to get out of this house now." Luke agreed, but before they could move, the doors to the main hall slammed shut with a bang. The colorful lights began to flicker again, and the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the house. "We're trapped," said Peter, looking around desperately. "What are we going to do?" Anna, trying to stay calm, suggested, "Let's try to find another way out. Maybe there's a back door or a window we can open." The group began frantically searching for an exit. As they searched, the strange events continued. The walls seemed to pulse, and shadows moved at the corners of their eyes. Claire found a window that seemed unlocked, but when she tried to open it, the window slammed shut violently, nearly crushing her fingers. "This house is alive," murmured Claire, stepping back. Suddenly, a loud banging noise came from the basement. "There's something down there," said Ralph, pointing to the basement door that was now ajar. "We have no choice," said Luke. "Let's see what's happening in the basement. Maybe there's a way out down there." Reluctantly, the group descended the dark basement stairs. The air was even colder and heavier, and the smell of mold was almost unbearable. When they reached the bottom, they found a large room filled with old boxes and dusty furniture. In the center of the basement was a circle drawn on the floor with strange symbols and extinguished candles around it. "This looks like some kind of ritual," said Anna, examining the symbols. Luke took out the diary that Claire had found earlier and flipped through the pages. "It says here that the Holloway family was involved in the occult. They performed rituals to try to communicate with the beyond." "That explains a lot," said Peter. "But how do we break this ritual?" Before they could discuss further, the candles around the circle lit up by themselves, and a spectral figure appeared in the center. It was a woman dressed in old clothes, her face pale and her eyes empty. "You have defiled this place," she said, her voice echoing through the basement. "Who are you?" asked Luke, trying to sound brave. "I am Eliza Holloway," the figure replied. "This house is a portal to the other world. You have brought chaos to my home." "We didn't mean any harm," said Anna, stepping forward. "We just wanted to have a fun night. We can leave and leave you in peace." Eliza shook her head slowly. "It's not that simple. You have awakened the forces that were dormant. Now you must fix what you have done." "How can we do that?" asked Claire, looking at Eliza. "Complete the ritual you interrupted," said Eliza, pointing to the circle on the floor. "Light the candles and recite the incantation to close the portal." The group looked at each other, just hesitant but realizing they had no choice. Following Eliza's instructions, they lit the candles around the circle. Luke read the incantation from the diary, trying to keep his voice steady. As he recited the words, the air around the circle began to vibrate. Eliza's figure became more defined, and a cold wind swept through the basement. "Keep going," urged Eliza, her voice now more urgent. Suddenly, the shadows in the basement began to move, forming human-like figures that circled the ritual. Figures seemed drawn to the energy of the ritual, but could not cross the barrier created by the candles. "We're almost there," shouted Luke, feeling the pressure increase. With one final effort, he recited the last words of the incantation. The shadowy figures let out agonized screams as they were sucked back into the darkness. Candles extinguished, and the basement fell silent. Eliza looked at the group with gratitude. "You did it. Portal is closed. Now leave and never return." Before they could respond, Eliza's figure disappeared, leaving only the echo of her word. The group, still shaken, climbed the stairs and found the house's doors open. They quickly exited without looking back. Once outside, they breathed a sigh of relief. "We're never doing something like this again," said Peter, his voice trembling. "I agree, Sturt," said Claire. "Let's go home and forget this night." Luke looked at the mansion one last time. Maybe it was a lesson. Some legends shouldn't be challenged. The group returned to their homes, promising never to mention the Holloway mansion again. The experience left them more cautious and aware of the dangers of the unknown. The house remained abandoned, its dark stories now more real than ever. Story 2. The Graduation Party. Graduation night is a magical event eagerly awaited by many young people. For a group of friends at an old, prestigious school, this night promised to be unforgettable. The graduation party was set to take place in the school's grand hall, an ancient and imposing building with a rich but also dark history. Friends, Mary, John, Lisa, Charles, and Philip, were eager to celebrate the end of an important chapter in their lives and the beginning of a new one. They arrived early at the school, helping with the decorations and preparations. The hall was stunning. Sparkling lights, elegantly arranged tables, and a stage ready for the live band. "This is going to be amazing," said Mary, admiring the work they had done. "Definitely a night to remember," agreed John, adjusting his tie. As they finished the final touches, the school principal, Mr. Silva, entered the hall. "Everything looks perfect. Just remember to behave and follow the rules," he said, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The friends laughed and promised to behave, but were more interested in having fun. As the night progressed, other students began to arrive, and the hall quickly filled with laughter, music, and dancing. However, as the night went on, strange events began to happen. Mary was the first to notice something was wrong. While dancing with her friends, she saw a shadowy figure passing through the corridor behind the stage. She stopped dancing and stared, trying to make out what she had seen. "Are you okay?" asked Lisa, noticing Mary's frightened expression. "I think I saw someone in the corridor," replied Mary, pointing to the spot. "It must be one of the teachers or staff," said Charles, trying to reassure her. Mary tried to ignore the unsettling feeling but couldn't shake the image of the shadowy figure from her mind. Meanwhile, John and Philip went to the bathroom and noticed the lights flickering and a strange coldness in the air. "This isn't normal," commented John, looking at Philip. "Maybe it's an electrical issue," suggested Philip, though he wasn't convinced himself. They returned to the hall, but the mood among the friends was tense. They decided to discreetly investigate. "Let's see if we find anything," said Lisa, always the most curious of the group. They split into pairs, with Mary and John going to the library, while Lisa and Charles went to the auditorium. Philip stayed in the hall to make sure no one noticed their absence. In the library, Mary and John found an old diary hidden on a shelf. "Look at this," said Mary, opening the diary. "It seems to belong to a former student." Pages were yellowed and faded, but they could read some parts. The diary spoke of a graduation party many years ago where something terrible happened. "There are records of students who disappeared that night," read John, frowning. "The school tried to cover up the incident." Mary felt a chill. Could the disappearances be linked to these strange events? Meanwhile, Lisa and Charles were exploring the auditorium. On the stage, they found a locked chest. "We need to see what's inside," said Charles, trying to force the lock. After a few minutes, they managed to open the chest and found old newspaper clippings and photos of missing students. "These are the people mentioned in the diary," exclaimed Lisa, showing the photos to Charles. "We need to tell the others," said Charles, pocketing some of the clippings. They returned to the hall and found Mary and John. "We found something important," they said almost simultaneously. They quickly exchanged information and realized that all the strange events and disappearances were connected. They decided to look for Mr. Silva, but he was strangely absent. "Where could he be?" asked Philip, worried. "Let's find him," suggested John. As they searched for the principal, the hall lights flickered again, and a loud static sound echoed through the sound system. Suddenly, a whispering voice began to speak through the speakers. "You shouldn't have come here." The students in the hall began to panic, but before the situation got out of control, Mary grabbed the microphone and tried to calm everyone down. "Stay calm. We're investigating what's happening. Everyone stay together and don't separate." The friends split up again to find Mr. Silva. Mary and John returned to the library, while Lisa and Charles went to check the principal's office. In the library, Mary found another diary entry mentioning a ritual that could have caused the disappearances. "It seems there was a pact with something dark," said Mary, showing the page to John. In the principal's office, Lisa and Charles found documents revealing that Mr. Silva knew about the past events and had been trying to keep everything secret to protect the school's reputation. "He knew everything," said Lisa, indignant. and did nothing to prevent it from happening again. As they returned to the hall to regroup, the hall doors slammed shut with a bang. The windows rattled, and a spectral figure appeared in the center of the hall. "You have awakened the curse," said the figure, voice echoing through the hall. "Now you will pay the price." The students screamed in fear as the figure approached. Mary, holding the diary, began to recite the incantation she had found, hoping to break the curse. "With these words, I command you to return to where you came from," said Mary, trying to keep her voice steady. The figure paused for a moment, seeming to hesitate. Before it could react, Mr. Silva ran into the hall, holding a glowing object. "This should end it all," said, throwing the object at the spectral figure. The object shone brightly, and the figure let out an agonizing scream before disappearing. The light stopped flickering, and silence returned to the hall. "Is it over?" asked Philip, still trembling with fear. "I hope so," said John, hugging Mary. Mr. Silva approached, looking exhausted. "I'm sorry for all this. The school has a dark past that I tried to hide. I thought I could keep everyone safe, but I failed." Mary handed the diary to Mr. Silva. "We found this in the library. It explains the disappearances and the ritual." Mr. Silva sighed. "Thank you for bringing this to light. We need to make sure this never happens again." In the following days, the school took measures to address the issues of the past. The students who attended the party were marked by the experience, but also more united. They learned that the truth must always be revealed, and that the past must be faced to ensure a safe future. Story 3. The Cabin Party. In the heart of a dense forest, there was an isolated cabin, a perfect retreat for those seeking to escape the hustle and bustle of the city. It was a remote place, surrounded by tall trees and a tranquil lake, where a group of friends decided to spend a weekend partying. The group, consisting of Julia, Mark, Renee, Andrew, and Kyle, was eager to enjoy a few days of fun away from their daily worries. The trip to the cabin was long, but the beauty of the landscape made the effort worth it. They arrived at the cabin at sunset, marveling at the view and the tranquility of the place. "This place is perfect," exclaimed Renee, breathing in the fresh forest air. "Finally, peace and quiet," agreed Mark, carrying the bags into the cabin. The cabin was rustic but cozy, with a fireplace in the living room, wooden furniture, and large windows offering stunning views of the forest. The friends began to settle in, unpacking supplies and decorating the cabin with lights and music to create a festive atmosphere. Night fell quickly, and soon the cabin was filled with laughter, loud music, and the smell of barbecue. Julia, the host of the group, served drinks while the others had fun playing cards and telling funny stories. The feeling of relaxation was palpable. Everyone was happy to be there. But like all good horror stories, the peace was interrupted by something strange. During a moment of silence between songs, Kyle heard a noise coming from the forest. "Did you hear that?" he asked, getting up from the couch. "What?" asked Andrew, distracted by the card game. "A noise in the forest. It sounded like a branch breaking," said Kyle, looking at the windows. "It must have been an animal," said Julia, trying to appear calm. "We are in the middle of the forest after all." Friends tried to forget the incident and continued the party, but the feeling that something was wrong persisted. Later that night, while sitting around the fireplace, Mark noticed a shadow moving near the window. "There's someone out there," he whispered, pointing to the window. Renee, always brave, got up and walked to the window. "There's no one here, Mark," she said, but her voice trembled slightly. The tension in the air was undeniable. They decided to lock all the doors and windows and try to relax. "Let's forget about it and focus on having fun," suggested Andrew, serving another round of drinks. The night continued, but the atmosphere was different. There was a feeling of being watched, and everyone was on edge. When the party began to wind down, they decided to go to bed, hoping that a good night's sleep would help them feel better. Around 3 a.m, Julia woke up to a loud noise coming from downstairs. It sounded like something or someone was moving in the living room. With her heart racing, she woke up Mark, who was sleeping next to her. "There's someone downstairs," she whispered. Mark, still half asleep, tried to calm her down. "It must be the wind or an animal," he said, but Julia's expression showed that she was not convinced. "Let's check it out," insisted Julia, grabbing a flashlight. They descended the stairs carefully, trying not to make any noise. When they reached the living room, they found a hooded figure rummaging through their things. Before they could react, the figure turned, revealing a pale face and eyes shining with madness. "You shouldn't be here," said the figure, voice cold and threatening. Mark tried to speak, but the words stuck in his throat. Julia, holding the flashlight tightly, took a step back. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" she asked, trying to sound firm. The figure gave a macabre smile. "You have invaded my territory. Now you will pay for it." Before they could react, the figure attacked Mark, knocking him to the ground. Julia screamed, waking the others. Renee, Andrew, and Kyle ran down the stairs, panicking at the sight of the struggle. "We need to get out of here," shouted Renee, pulling Julia towards the door. Mark managed to free himself from the attacker for a moment. The figure was incredibly strong. "Run!" shouted, punching the figure and getting up quickly. The friends ran out of the cabin, into the dark forest. The sound of breaking branches and rustling leaves echoed around them as they tried to get as far away as possible. After running for several minutes, they stopped to catch their breath. "What was that?" asked Kyle, still panting. "I don't know, but we need to find help," said Julia, looking around, trying to get her bearings. They decided to follow a trail that led them to the lake. They hoped they could find a way back to town, or some sign of civilization. But as they advanced, they realized they were being followed. The hooded figure was chasing them, appearing and disappearing among the trees. "We can't keep running forever," said Andrew, exhausted. "We need to find a safe place." They found an old fishing cabin near the lake and decided to hide inside. The cabin was in ruins, but it offered some protection from the pursuer. They locked the door and piled furniture against it to prevent entry. "What are we going to do now?" asked Renee, her voice trembling. "We need to think of a plan," said Mark, trying to sound calm. "Maybe we can find something to defend ourselves." They searched the cabin and found some old tools, like an axe and a wooden stick. "This is all we have," said Kyle, holding the axe. "If he comes in, we'll fight." Time passed slowly, and the silence of the night was broken only by the sound of their heavy breathing. Suddenly, they heard footsteps outside the cabin. Figure was there, trying to force the door. "Get ready," said Mark, raising the stick. The door trembled and with a bang was opened. Figure entered, but the friends were ready. Kyle attacked with the axe, while Mark and Andrew used the stick and other tools to try to bring down the intruder. The fight was fierce and desperate. Figure was incredibly strong, but the friends were determined to survive. With a final blow, they managed to bring down the figure, which fell to the ground, motionless. Everyone was exhausted and injured, but relieved. "We did it," said Renee, feeling tears of relief streaming down her face. "We need to get out of here and find help," said Julia, helping Mark to his feet. As they left the fishing cabin, the light of dawn began to appear on the horizon. They followed the trail back to the lake, where they finally found a group of fishermen who helped them get to town. They reported everything to the police, who returned to the cabin to investigate. They found the body of the hooded figure, but the identity of the attacker remained a mystery. The experience left a deep mark on the friends, who swore never to return to that place. The cabin was abandoned again, becoming part of the local legends about the haunted forest. Julia, Mark, Renee, Andrew, and Kyle moved on with their lives, but always remembered, terrifying night.